Welcome everyone back to Haven of Horror. We're doing Red Dragon, the Kung Fu movie. Okay,
Yeah.
so what's interesting, Robert, is the director's cut of Manhunter is 2 hours and 4 minutes. The theatrical cut is 2 hours and even. Red Dragon is 2 4.
Yeah.
What is happening?
So this, so both this and the previous movie Hannibal were produced by Dino De Laurentiis, but I think distributed by Universal Picture. And this is, and then Hannibal Rising was the last Dino De Laurentiis one, and then he got a different distributor for that. Which again, this movie was distributed by Universal, which is why I don't understand why it's not on this Universal collection. uh, Very strange, but we're going to talk about this movie. Yeah, this is an old Blu-ray. Oh God, one of the bonus features is Brett Ratner's student film.
No, no,
Don't
no,
want to
wait,
watch
wait,
that.
wait.
Why is that here? Also,
What?
feature commentary with the director Brett Ratner. Yeah, no thanks.
I'm sure he will have many insights to shooting the film.
Also, a director's journey bonus feature. There's a
What?
lot of Brett Ratner
Bonus
on this.
features on about Brett Ratner.
The true auteur.
Like, I like this movie, but he's director wise, he's a step down from whoever did Silence of the Lambs. I don't know their name.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and the look of this movie is very. It's just copying both that and what Ridley Scott did with Hannibal. Both those movies, like, just do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. Like, it's shot competently.
Are you ready, good sir?
I'm ready.
In three, two, one, play.
And Silence of the Lambs, by the way, was directed by Jonathan Demme, a filmmaker I'm not that familiar with outside of that movie, even though it's one of my absolute favorites.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, just he's not one of those that comes up as like, oh, this guy is like a must. It's just like, oh, you got to see Silence of the Lambs.
He's no Brett Ratner.
Probably because he hasn't made shit since Silence of the Lambs. Like, remember the
I think he.
Manchurian Candidate?
Oh, that classic remake.
His last movie was called Ricky and the Flash.
I do like this prologue though. Like I do like this flashback with.
Okay, now I feel kind of bad. Apparently, he died.
Oh, that's a shame.
Like in 2017.
Yeah, well that would explain it, John. You're like, this guy hasn't done shit in
Well,
years. Like, yeah, that's why.
but I stand by the fact that he made one great film, and nothing else in his
He,
filmography is jumping out to me.
yeah, love Silence of the Lambs, one of my absolute favorites. So, part of one thing that's unfortunate with this getting made over a decade after Silence is Anthony Hopkins is noticeably older.
Yeah. He's still good.
He's still great.
I'm
This
kind
is
of glad they
oddly
didn't recast, just because at the time, I don't think that would have been a good idea.
right.
Honestly,
I think
though,
a lot
I
of
would have made this before Hannibal.
me too. Again, I get why they didn't make this in the '90s because Manhunter would have been a lot more recent.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, oh, they already made that movie.
But they
Like, I
didn't
don't
wait
know,
very
but
long after the 90s to make this.
I mean, Hannibal comes out a full decade after Silence, and then this is made
True.
immediately after that.
But yeah, see, this is what I mean. Is like I like that we get to see what he was
Mhm.
like. Mingling with these high society stuck up people.
Yeah. How do you feel about his ponytail?
Uh it's goofy,
It's choice. that's
but I
that's how you
buy
know
it
he's young and
for
hip.
this crowd who aren't really in touch but think they're in touch. Like
Mhm.
I like that. I think that he's playing a part.
Yeah, I don't know if this is from the book, but him targeting this guy and then feeding him to these people is great. But remember with Hannibal, as I guess this wasn't made first just because the Hannibal. I get why after Silence of the Lambs, though, it's, well, we got to make a sequel because that movie ends on kind of a cliffhanger with Hannibal getting out. So I get why that's the next movie you want to make. It just ends up taking 10 years because it's in development hell for forever. And then Hannibal, should say, as polarizing as that movie is, made a shit ton of money. So when that comes out, they're immediately like, well, we have this other book. I guess we could just do that again. Because
What I
this
like
comes out like
about
a year and a half after Hannibal. They make
yeah,
this movie fast.
what I like about Ed Norton in this role is he's got that kind of awkward outsider energy, whereas the other one, like, yeah, there is more of that instability there than I went on. I definitely picked up on that same feeling, but he comes off as the cool cop. He's kind of
He does.
this guy is like, no, this is a weird guy.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
a
yeah.
nerd.
William Peterson is like '80s cool cop who doesn't play by the rules. He has that energy.
Yeah.
Edward Norton's a little more just socially awkward.
Anthony Hopkins looked really old in this scene specifically.
Hmm. And what's funny too is you could have done just a whole movie on just this relationship, but then that's what the TV show would end up being. Like, yeah, that dynamic's interesting. Let's just do more of that.
And it would be that familiar silence formula where he's helping solve crimes, but nobody knows that he's the killer yet.
Hmm.
And I do know in the show that relationship turns sour really quick.
And then this will also make it interesting finally watching, or in your case, rewatching Hannibal Rising. It'd be interesting to watch that film and then immediately watch this one and just see how much you buy that version of Hannibal growing up into this.
Yeah, because
Not
I
saying he
know
does or doesn't.
that the main thing I remember from that movie is it is very much a sympathetic guy succumbing to the darkness in him. We got to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, do you remember if the Hannibal book is like all from Clarice's point of view, or do they like jump
I feel like
with
I
both her and Hannibal?
vaguely remember. I'm pretty sure it's Big Jump because that story is weird because Clarice is after Hannibal, but Mason Verger is also after Hannibal. So to
Mhm.
tell the story, you kind of have to jump around POVs because he's sticking to that three-way game.
The, one thing that stood out to me as an Easter egg in this set that I'm not sure if I like or not. He has framed bugs like moths and shit that is clearly a Silence of the Lambs reference that's
Silence of the
forced.
Silence of
Silence
the
of the Rams.
Rams. The
That's
Rams,
what I meant.
Clarice. Do they still?
I'm, yeah, she stole a baby one. I don't know. Is that too cutesy of an Easter egg for you, or are you fine with it?
I didn't even notice it, so sure.
Yeah.
No, that probably is a little too on the nose.
And also, I'm not saying it's a problem because I don't know how if this plays out the same way in the book. Because I know in both versions, it's like, oh, I saw like this book and pieced it together. In the context of this movie, it's a book that's just out, like bookmarked and everything for Will just to find, and then this fight happens. So later, when Hannibal Lecter's like, "Do you know how you caught me? It's because you're crazy. You're like me." It's like, no, he caught you because he left the book out. It was
No,
bookmarked and everything.
to be fair, that's not the book. That's not the same book that he had. He saw in another book, and he pieced it together. He just happened to see
Oh.
that book while waiting for
Now, was Hannibal shot like 5 times?
Hannibal. I don't think so.
How do you feel about the arrows? That was a weird choice.
I like those better than I do the shots because
It's
Hannibal's
very
a high society collector. He would have some kind of antique arrows, and
Mhm.
that's just Will Graham like grabbing the first thing that's next to him.
Yeah, he's not a hunting guy, or at least so we think. But yeah, I could buy him collecting like antique weapons and shit.
He's a hunter, just not that kind of hunter.
Exactly. He's the most dangerous game kind of hunter. I do like this opening credit sequence a lot with the clippings from Dollar Hyde. It's a
For
good
a second
montage
there,
catching us up.
when Emily Watson popped up on screen, I read Emma Watson. I was like, she's like 8.
You're like,
What?
what? She's the blind chick.
Oh no, 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 no! Wait, wait, wait! Hermione and Voldemort in a very uncomfortable
Oh
relationship.
no, you're right. It's that thing. Yeah, and I also like that they set up the photo
I
of Will
love
in the
the
hospital.
dedication to the red and white font.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
Elfman does the score here.
yeah, that's just weird. We don't have a consistent composer for this franchise. Silence of the Lambs is Howard Shore. Hannibal was Hans Zimmer, and then this one was Danny Elfman.
I don't love the idea. I'd have to like keep an ear out on the score. I don't love the idea of Elfman on this because Elfman's a very traditional composer.
There's a lot of Elfman cues
Mm-hmm.
I noticed.
For this kind of series, I would think you'd want something grungier, like a Trent Reznor, or
Mhm. Yeah,
like
that's what's funny. As successful as Seven was, you'd think like, oh, that guy, get that guy for the Silence of the Lambs sequel. Unless he turned
and
it down.
well, what's weird too is that Reznor doesn't do a lot of film scores after that until the later 2000s, and I think it's just he gets back into it working with Fincher because he does the Social Network.
Mhm.
And apparently, he did the Watchmen show, and nobody told me.
Oh yeah, cool. 'Cause he did that movie Challengers, right? That was Trent Reznor.
Yes, that score is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm not a
So
score
speaking,
guy. I listen to Trent Reznor scores.
yeah, and now the title card is just several years later, so we're kind of vague about what exact year we're in.
But I think Silence is also vague, isn't it?
Sure. It's just if you're looking at clothing and cars and shit, you can tell that it was made in the early '90s.
Yeah. Okay, Robert. Question. I never thought about this. Is this the set from The Punisher?
It could be.
It kind of looks like the where they run down Maria and that kid.
It does. Yeah. And this is like 2 years earlier. If they filmed at the same location, it could be.
That's amazing.
How do you feel about Harvey Keitel as Jack Crawford here?
He's fine. He's just I don't know.
Yeah, he's fine. I just wish it was Scott Glenn for the sake of consistency, because I like Scott Glenn a lot in the
Yeah.
Silence movie. Yeah, my only gripe with the filmmaking is like I don't need this to be an anamorphic, and I don't know if this was shot on digital or film. It was probably shot on film, but I do wish it didn't look so 2000s to me. I wish they went for a more 90s old-fashioned look. Just the way it's lit and like there's a lot more color correction and stuff like that. Not that it looks bad.
I
Um,
forgot that Scott Glenn is Stick. So it's like I know that name. Oh, now I really need to rewatch Silence of the Lambs because I need to see him in that role.
yeah,
That's weird.
Scott Glenn is in like every 90s movie and then Daredevil, and I have no idea what he did in the 20 years in between.
I don't know.
So, does Bookwill have blonde hair? Like, I'm not even saying it's a problem. It's like, oh, we dyed Ed Norton's hair blonde for some reason. I'm
I
not
don't
saying it's bad.
remember.
It's just weird.
I'm almost inclined to say no because this is the only one that has blonde hair. I don't know about Manhunter because I think that's just that actor's hair.
Mhm.
But then in the show, he has dark hair and it's very messy. Like the Will Graham in the show is a very not well put together person because of who he is.
Mhm. Yeah, and in this one we have Mary Louise Parker as his wife, who I think is fine. She was in tons of stuff at the time. Fried green tomatoes, bunch of movies, popular actress. Here, she's just kind of stock movie wife. I don't really get much from her until the end when she gets to do something.
So you mentioned the slice down the face and them not doing it in here. It's interesting that you say that because that's a plot point in Silence of the Lambs. We get in the book. I forgot about this, but I just looked it up. We get one reference to him that he's a drunk down in Florida with a face that's hard to look at. So just fuck him, I guess. I guess he just is
Yeah.
miserable for
Well,
the rest of his life.
we were talking about this the other day, like, oh, what if we did a legacy sequel or something and brought him back? And you were like, oh, well, how they'd probably do it is the cliche, like, oh, he's miserable and
This is the way you could
we
get
do
away
that
with it,
trope.
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that is from the books though, because I
Yeah.
mentioned that. And I was like, no, I heard that in the book he's mentioned that his life's real shitty, and that's so yeah. Book will it doesn't work out for him. His life just sucks now, and we never bring him back for some reason.
That's because Silence took off, right? That's why Clarice is back in
Yeah,
Hannibal.
right. Yeah, would have been cool if he brought back Will too. I'm not sure why he didn't, but it was clearly like, well, you're writing this to make a movie, and we're gonna bring Clarice back for the other movie.
I would love to see what the author of these books thinks of the Hannibal show.
Yeah. Again, he's apparently just kind of a chill guy. I don't think strong opinions on any the adaptations. I think I've heard quotes from him before where he's like, "I try not to look at them too closely. Like my books are mine and they can do their thing, but I don't, you know." Which is funny because he didn't writing the screenplay for the last movie. But yeah, I don't think he had strong opinions either way. But the show, I don't know if he looked at that at all. Because I think he's been asked before, like, well, what do you think about like these actors as Hannibal? And I think he said, like, well, I don't see any of them as my Hannibal. My book Hannibal is very much its own thing, and then the actors can do their own thing with it.
It's a
So like
good
he
way to
gave his
look at it.
blessing. So yeah, like he gave his blessing. He just wasn't that involved.
So you might be right about Manhunter being more closer to that book because in the book, I guess he is closer to just a stock protagonist. But I appreciate these later adaptations, which try to give him a little more distinction,
Mm,
especially when you're trying to differ him from like Clarice.
mm.
because Todd Harrison was like, "You liked what I did at that time? I'll do it again."
Do it again. Yeah, like I said, this scene isn't bad. I just don't care for the jump scare sound effects. Uh, it's just like spooky. Like,
Yeah, I don't love the sound choice in that.
and then we're
But I
gonna
do
get
like
like
the way it's shot, where it's like you're kind of in the eyes of the protagonist, so you don't know what you're walking into. But I didn't need the
mhm,
sound effect.
right. It's a very 2000s choice.
Ed Norton is an actor I want to see more stuff that he's been in. I like him in
Yeah,
everything I've seen him in.
me too. Even if he is difficult to work with, I'm like,
But
I like the
if
guy.
it is just that he cares about the characters he's playing,
Mhm.
I could think of worse things.
Yeah. Well, Val, and granted, there were a couple movies. One movie in particular where Val Kilmer was being kind of an asshole. But for a lot of his work, he also had that reputation of being difficult to work with. And it's like, no, it's just because he cares. Like he's a Juilliard actor. He's
Isn't the big
perfectionist,
one
right?
that he was really hard to work with was Batman Forever? Because I remember reading something where Joel Schumacher was like there were days he wouldn't even come out of his trailer.
He was hard to work with, but more in that it was just a bad experience. Like because he hated being in that suit.
Mm-hmm.
That was what kind of
Ben
made him
Affleck has
Joker.
been talking about that recently. I saw an interview with him
Yeah,
because we can't stop asking him about Batman. I feel so bad for him.
that's the tricky thing with those suits. It's not like James Bond where you can expect an actor to do 6 or 7 of those movies. It's like no, until we simplify those Batman suits are a freaking nightmare to film in. It's a miracle when an actor does 3 of those things.
Yeah, because he talked about like it's already hot and like he sweats a lot, but then you put the cowl on and it's like
Yeah.
suffocating.
And one thing Val Kilmer talked about on Batman Forever was like he couldn't hear, he could barely move. It was just a very isolating,
Especially
not
with
enjoyable
those
experience with the rubber suit.
armor rubber. And funny enough, I saw because Ben Affleck is doing press for that The Accountant 2, which is wild that that movie's coming out this late. Somebody's like, "Are you coming back for as Daredevil at Doomsday?" I was like, "What?"
Why would you ask him that? Yeah. Yeah, like I hope
And
we
he
get more
is
Jason
aware
Batman.
of
I
the
like the
new.
first one.
He is aware of the new Daredevil. I bet you he's watched that Netflix show.
Yeah. Well, that was a character he actually cared about.
Mm-hmm.
Like he actually
Well, I get the
genuinely
feeling him
cared about
both
those.
characters that he signed on for was like because he cared about those
Mm.
characters, and he's good
Yeah,
at both of them. He just got screwed over by circumstances.
oh, absolutely. Because I mean, him and Kevin Smith, were friends. I mean, they're still friends, but back in the day, like, yeah, they were both into genuine, like, geeky,
Mm-hmm.
dirty shit. Their careers just went in very different directions.
Speaking of actors though being hard to work with, I don't know if you remember this, but remember when that one guy that was attached to the Witcher show tried to accuse Henry Cavill of being really hard to work with, and
No.
people were just like, "No, it's just because you weren't doing the source material. Like he was there to do The Witcher, and you guys wanted to do your own thing."
Mm-hmm.
But I like where like you can see him kind of seeing what probably might have happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, I don't need the jump scare noises, but you do see a lot more of, like, the gruesome imagery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scenes like this that are just word for word the same. Um,
What I like about this one is he is a little more expressive. Like you're right, Will Peterson is doing a lot with his face that I just didn't pick up on the first time. But I like that
mm.
it's a more physical performance
Yeah, there's a
for
lot more
this guy.
movement. It's choreographed differently.
And Ed Norton is really good at that like awkward, kind of unstable guy. Like they picked the perfect guy for this time period.
But also, and part of why I appreciate Manhunter so much is that we get this version too. Like, if we lived in the reality where Manhunter was like the only adaptation of these books
For sure, yeah.
we ever got, like, I could see people being more critical of it. Like, oh man, you really gutted a lot of interesting stuff out of the book, and then that's all you get. But because of what we get after, I can appreciate it as its own different take.
I have that
You know,
too.
that's always nice.
No, no, Ed Norton was in those Knives Out movies, at least in
Oh
one
yeah,
of them.
he's in the second one. Oh, and here we have Bill Duke from Predator.
Yeah.
He's one of
Um,
those like, oh, a Brett Ratner regular because he's also in X-Men 3 as
well,
Trask.
not only him, but Quill Guy is in this movie.
That is true. That guy is in this movie. Wow, all the Brett Ratner regulars
Uh,
all
I had
kind of
a I had a really
got together again for the
awkward
first time.
I had a really awkward moment when we did Hannibal or Predator, uh, and I was talking about that guy. I swore up and down he was in Doom, but it's not him. I thought he was the guy with like the Gatling gun. I thought that was the
That's
same
funny.
actor. It's like, oh, I still need to see Birdman.
I like Birdman a lot. That was like a Edward Norton comeback performance. He's really
Yeah.
good in it.
Oh, he was in the Bourne Legacy.
Well, of course he was. You see what I mean, though? Like, oh, pause that. Oh, fuck, are we not going to see it again? There is a tiny noose on a desk behind Edward Norton's head. Look, there it
I see
is!
it. I see it.
Why? Why? That's the weirdest bit of set decoration in this movie, and I don't understand it. I'm guessing you didn't spot that on your last
I
view.
didn't.
Like, why is that there?
Amazing.
What is it?
That's the noose. That's the noose the Munchkin in Wizard of Oz used.
Oh. And like it's in frame every time it cuts to Ed Norton's face. It's so
But
weird.
what were you gonna say before you got sidetracked by the noose?
Well, like, do you see what I mean though? How like the movie again, it doesn't look bad. It just looks very 2000s.
Very standard
Um,
2000s fare, yeah.
yeah, like I
There's not
wish
a
it
lot of
tried
style
more.
here.
Yeah, I wish it tried more to capture that gritty Silence of the Lambs look.
There's a world where this
Even
is a
though it's a
David
prequel,
Fincher movie, and it turns out to be the actual best of these
and it's
four.
a masterpiece. Yeah. Well, and like I said, I think David Fincher could have made something great out of Hannibal. I at least think that's a good looking movie. I like Ridley Scott's visual style, but also I think David Fincher may have been able to crack that script because I don't know who could.
There is something funny that you go from like Silence of the Lambs director, who's that's kind of his one big hit, to
And
then
not known
Ridley,
for horror,
and not known
not known
for,
for
then
genre
to
stuff.
Ridley Scott, who is just does a little bit of everything, and then we end this trilogy on Brett Ratner.
Uh, the most work for hire director, and then we get to Hannibal Rising, directed by God knows who.
Yeah, who does direct Hannibal Rising? Now that I think about it,
I'll look at. I have no idea.
I'm looking it up. I've got the Wikipedia page up. Peter Weber. Oh, he directed the Stepford Wives remake.
Okay.
That's the only other movie out here that I've heard of.
So he's made things.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hannibal Rising is the first Hannibal Lecter thing I ever hear about. Because I was a kid when that movie came out, and I remember my best friend, his dad took him to go see it because they liked Silence of the Lambs, and I think at the time they were like it was all right. I don't know, but I was a kid and not really that interested in horror yet. And then shortly after that, like that, I became more aware of like the Hannibal Lecter character. Finally saw Silence of the Lambs when I was a teenager and became one of my favorite movies. And then slowly kind of veered more into the rest of this franchise. It's interesting how that film is so
Who's this
remembered
guy?
and iconic. Yeah, here's Dr. Chilton.
Yeah. What is this actor's name?
Oh, good question. Because he's from Silence of the Lambs and he's clearly 10 years older, but it's fine. Dr. Chilton. Anthony Heald. He is known for playing Hannibal Lecter's jailer in Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon. So he's in Boston
Another
Public.
Hey, another X-Men The Last Stand actor.
Oh
He
my
is one of
god.
the FBI Mystique interrogators.
I always forget that's Dr. Chilton. I don't know why.
Just because, like, when he popped up on the screen, I was like, he looks really fucking familiar.
It's like, yes, John, he's in Silence of the Lambs, but also he's in
Um,
X Men The Last Stand.
I was aware of Silence at the time, but I get into this franchise, I think, shortly after that movie hits DVD because I had them all on DVD. That's when I got into the books. This is, I feel like this next, like Hannibal Rising, kind of, but like this is the forgotten one of the Hopkins era. Nobody talks about
Right.
this one.
Because Hannibal's the polarizing one that people love or hate. But I also think Silence of the Lambs is kind of a psycho situation where it's like that singular film is remembered more than the entire franchise.
Yeah.
Um, though if you were there for Hannibal, you certainly remembered it.
I know everybody Connor has seen at least Hannibal because he went through all of Ridley Scott's films.
Interesting. Yeah, Hannibal's a weird movie. That and it does stick close-ish to the book. Like it's the same plot. It's the ending that's completely different. Where they're like, we can't do that.
Remember Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, and maybe to its detriment, they really marketed this movie on Hopkins. I mean,
Yeah.
like, look at the poster.
I mean, have
It's
you seen the Hannibal poster?
it. Oh yeah, and that poster's awesome.
Where it's just his face.
Yeah, and he has a red eye. But with this, it's like they beef up his role a lot. And even then, I could see some people being kind of disappointed. Like, oh, I came here for the Hannibal prequel, and it's only kind of that.
I would say he doesn't look as older in these shots.
I think if you watched it back to back with Silence of the Lambs, it'd be more jarring.
Watch this first and then Silence. Why is he 10 years younger? Is he Benjamin Button?
And I can let that slide. I prefer this over recasting. Like it's fine.
Yeah. I will say if there's one thing I will, because I don't necessarily care that there's a lot of lack of style here. This all looks really flat.
Yeah, and again, I think the anamorphic aspect ratio, I think it's to its detriment. It's like because Sean Carpenter, cousin Sean
Everyone's
Carpenter.
everyone's second favorite Carpenter.
the lesser Carpenter, but John Carpenter, he knows how to use this aspect ratio and just fill the screen and do stuff with it. Here, yeah, I wish it was in the bigger Silence of the Lambs format. Like you said, it's just kind of flat, and there's not a lot going on. But the exchange back and forth is the same in both versions, and it is cool getting to hear Anthony Hopkins deliver these lines. Like it's still entertaining to watch. Yeah, one of the taglines for this movie was "For the silence, meet Hannibal Lecter for the first time until Hannibal Rising," which is actually the first time.
My favorite is the one on the theatrical poster. To understand the origin of evil, you must go back to the beginning.
Yeah, that's not a good reflection of this movie. A good representation of the story.
What?
That was written by somebody who didn't watch who did not know what this was about, right? Hannibal Lecter prequel? I don't know.
Evil.
Oh yeah, it also says the first and most terrifying chapter in the Hannibal Lecter trilogy.
That one's at least kind of true.
Until they made the next one.
Yeah, but it's a trilogy.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention during our Manhunter commentary was I know in the 90s, after Silence of the Lambs was a huge hit, they put out Manhunter again on VHS. And like one of the blurbs they put on that VHS tape was like the official prequel to Silence of the Lambs. Like clearly to get people to buy it.
I hope they got their
Like,
asses
what
sued.
is this? The only thing I don't know if we've talked over it yet. The only thing I don't like about Anthony Hopkins' performance here is he'll do the southern accent thing a few times, which in Silence of the Lambs is a very specific mocking Clarice moment in where she's from and picking up on her accent and exaggerating it and throwing it back. Here it's just here it's a thing he does. There's a lot of repeating silence in this of remember that movie?
I also think him and Norton don't quite have the chemistry him and Foster had.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's still fine. Like it's still
Yeah.
likable.
No, like Norton's holding his own in this scene.
Mm-hmm. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman's just perfect casting for this role. You hate him so much. And then the show made him a hot chick. And it made Jack Crawford a black guy. That show is woke, John. I'm not watching it.
Ah, you bastard.
I mean, I'm sure somebody was complaining. I don't know 10 years ago if that caused much of a stir online, if
I
there
think
were
that
any
was a
purists. Like, how
problem as
dare
big
you?
10 years ago.
Yeah. I just think people gave a shit as much then. Like, I don't remember any, like, you ruined Hannibal Lecter discourse. I know when the show was first coming out, many people, like, us included, were like, "Why are you doing a Hannibal Lecter show without Anthony Hopkins? That sounds like a terrible idea." So it did have some resistance, but everyone says it was great. I need to watch it.
We'd caught on sooner.
The home video just turns into the found footage at the end of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Oh no!
Like, what am I watching? Stop watching other people's home movies, you pervert. And yeah, it is interesting how many adaptations we have now of this character, Will Graham, when he's only in one book.
Yeah. Well, that's why I find it interesting that the show went with him.
Right. Any other network would be like, "Oh, we'll make it Clarice because everybody knows Clarice."
Well, to be fair, that might also be a rights issue because apparently Clarice is owned by a different
Yes,
rights
that's true.
company.
Yeah, I think this is a franchise, and these are books where it's like that fucking Clarice show. It's like, no, we don't need more. We don't need more remakes. We don't need more. Literally, all people want is a revival of that show. That's all you need to do. It's like, no, we're making a Clarice show. Watch it. No. Yeah, it is a weird jumbled franchise, kind of like something like Exorcist now, where you have like the reboots and the show and all these things that aren't that are so disconnected.
Yeah. Well, now if we're on track with the Exorcist franchise, the next will be the David Gordon Green Legacy sequel.
Yeah, that I mean, he is 87, but I do still think that a legacy sequel with Anthony Hopkins is in the cards. I think somebody will try to make it before he dies. That is part of what makes this run a little incomplete to me. It's like Hannibal is just such a weird ending point where I'm a little bummed we never got a sequel to that movie. Again, a team up with Edward Norton's Will Graham and Julianne Moore's Clarice. Like, I watched that movie. Like, one final Hannibal movie with Hopkins. Like, I'm a little bummed we never
So
got that.
take this for what it's worth because it's from one of those leakers. Daniel RPK has reported that Universal is working on a new Hannibal film, but there's no information on it's a reboot or a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, if, that wouldn't surprise me.
This is horrifying.
Yeah. And speaking of Exorcist, a minute ago, the voice of his grandmother, Dollarhide's grandmother, is voiced by Ellen Burstyn, who played Chris McNeil in The Exorcist, who came back for the Exorcist Believer Legacy sequel. And like I said, I do really like all this extra stuff with Dollarhide we get. You know, how he operates, uh, this journal and things he makes. Also, him working out, I know, is a thing from the book. Because I think in the book, Dollarhide's like a bodybuilder.
I
Um,
remember. I vaguely remember like there being kind of an idea of like he's a big guy, which is
mhm.
funny because in both movies he's kind of small.
Yeah, I mean, Ray Fiennes, like, he's in good shape, but he's not
He's not
that fitness
Arnold.
shape. Yeah. Well, with Tom Noonan, they really lean into just, he's just a really tall guy. You know, he's like 6'5". So this is one of the added Lecter scenes that I'm pretty sure isn't in the book. But this is just, we want to film in a different location with Hopkins, right? In Silence of the Lambs, I don't buy that they're doing this, giving him these walks. It's just, we want to get him out of that cell for a scene.
You gotta let him stretch his legs.
Also, I don't know why it looks like a gym. Like it's just a weird setting where we just took out the bleachers. And this film was successful. Like, it didn't make as much money as Hannibal did, but it did turn a profit. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't just do another sequel with Hopkins and why they went the prequel origin route instead. I guess I was just in the air at the time, like, well, we haven't done an origin story yet. Guess we should
Well,
do that.
what's something interesting that we didn't bring up is they didn't make the movie unless there was source material, even if they had to like blackmail the author to create the source material. So
Hmm.
maybe that's just what he turned in.
Yeah, maybe it's just what, because I'm sure when developing the older books, Thomas Harris, had an idea of Hannibal's backstory, and I'm sure it's something he was thinking about for a long time. And with that Hannibal sequel, you could tell that was a sequel. He was just like, I don't know,
Yeah,
this.
because I
Like,
think
I don't think he knew where to go after Hannibal.
I don't know if it's in the movies, but I think in one of the books there is a mention of his sister, which is a big
Mhm.
thing in the prequel.
That's true. Yeah, I believe we're making progress. And it's scenes like this that do feel very like we're repeating Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter's talking about like he wants to transform, he's evolving, which I know is from the book, but it
Yeah.
feels very like we're doing the Silence of the Lambs scenes again. Do you want to read that live chat?
Splash your Fred, because I think that what makes Manhunter such a great underrated movie. So when most of us think of the character of Silent Hannibal Lecter, first thing that pops into our minds is the Silence of the Lambs. I
Uh,
mean, you're not wrong about that second part. I don't think that had an effect on, for me at least, the quality of Manhunter. It's just other than this is a novelty of a pre Hopkins Hannibal.
yeah, and I do like Brian Cox's take. I think it works for that movie, but I will say, as much as I love Manhunter, yes, I do prefer the Anthony Hopkins version. He's
Yeah,
used scenery more. He's a lot more interesting. he's a lot more eccentric. Uh, because like I absolutely adore Silence of the Lambs. So for me, it all worked out. But I do like the Hopkins version, and this is what I'm talking about. We're doing the phone scene where here he's gonna tap it, and that somehow like I don't I don't know how this works.
I don't know how that phone works. There's no number pad.
Yeah. Well, the one in the other movie didn't have a number pad either. It's because the phone is supposed to just be a direct line to his lawyer.
Oh, okay.
So it is a specialty phone for that. But somehow Lecter hacks it and gets this other. In both movies, we do it differently, and it's like I don't know if that makes sense or not. Again, my guess is in the book it's just Lecter hacked the phone and got this other number, and we're not going to explain the details of how he did that. But then this scene is like word for word the same. It's just interesting seeing, the Hopkins take on it.
Bible Study Archive says the opening scene wasn't in the book either. You probably already pointed that out, but I got here late. The opening of Red Dragon? I thought it was.
Yeah, what John read said that it was, but it could keep in mind that it is just a Wikipedia summary.
Summary, it could
So
be
maybe
different.
oh, so what I think is that information is in the book. We probably just get it later, and then whoever wrote the Wikipedia summary just put it up top as backstory. Like,
Yeah.
Will Graham
So
caught Hannibal Lecter and got him put away. Yada yada.
we talked about it a little bit, I think, before we started both of these. I have read the books, but it's been like a decade. Robert doesn't know what a book is, so yeah.
That's true. I know what a comic book is.
Yeah.
I like the funny books.
Where's our Hannibal graphic novel?
Yeah, we have a million Dracula comics. I'd buy that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it would be cool if somebody did a Hannibal comic book series that was just doing the books but in chronological order, which is kind of what the TV show was doing. It was just cut short. We just didn't get to finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting with the Ray Fiennes take. He still has the scar on his lip. His hair is like a little messy, but he's mostly a good-looking guy.
Yeah. No, I wish they'd done a little bit more makeup and stuff to make him look.
More weird. But I do like this scene a lot. I've been in this type of dark room before with like the sliding, like the circular door. It's really cool. I took a film class in college that I miss. Working with real film was really cool. And Reba, like I said before, I do like in Manhunter, but this take with Emily Watson, I do prefer this version because you spend a lot more time with her, and she's very tragic and sympathetic. But like the scenes with them together, I like a lot. And again, you get this a lot earlier in this version than you do in the other one. We
Yeah.
really take our time more on this relationship. And then this is the guy who in Manhunters, just a guy, he's just a coworker, seems like a cool, nice guy. Here we really lean into making him an asshole who's trying to get a date with her and is very pushy, so that when he's killed later, you don't feel that mad about it because we're trying to sympathize the Ray Fiennes version of Dollar Hydebore. Because the way movie rules go is if a character is remotely an asshole, you could kill him. It's not gonna bother us.
Yeah, we really stopped after for a while. Just letting good characters die. But then I feel like it kind of swung the other way, where because like Game of Thrones got popular, it's like nobody's safe, and then like The Walking Dead, nobody's safe, even though that's bullshit, and you could always tell who was safe. Uh, but now it's like, well, we got to make sure they can't predict who we're gonna kill, so pick it out of a hat.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. Sometimes they could pull off a surprise, but yeah, that's hard to pull off with a TV show. Ride with me.
I don't like the way he put those words together. Ride with me for my pleasure. Ew.
For my pleasure. Yeah, slasher Fred. We talked about that earlier. Like the order the books were written versus the order of the movies. Because the Silence of the Lamb movie, because Manhunter was a flop, when they got around when they sold the rights and they made the Silence of the Lambs movie, like they treated it as an entirely standalone thing. So I know that book does, like you said, like the Will Graham mention, what happened to him. Like it is very much written as a sequel, and that's the stuff that's cut out of the movie, just so it can stand on its own. Which is fine, and I think worked out. Like the books, it's funny because the books, being adapted out of order, it's still not like the James Bond situation where I don't know if you know this, but like the old James Bond movies were adapted completely out of order, sometimes to the movie's detriments, where
Mhm.
there's like continuity errors and shit. Where you're like, but this is supposed to be a sequel to that, but you made that first, and now the continuity's fucked. That happened a lot in the old Bond movies.
I don't
Or
want to.
like the very first James Bond movie, Doctor No, I think. They completely changed the opening and where he is as a character at the start of that because that book is a sequel to another book. So the way that movie opens with Bond is completely different from the source material. And like I said, I really like how this relationship between Dollarhide and this blind lady, we really take our time with it in this version. And I think it's the best stuff in the movie. It's just very tragic. But then when she has lines like, "Oh, you're different, you're an outcast," it's like he looks fine to me. And then again, scenes like this are word for word the same version, where she asks if she can touch his face to know what he looks like, and then he stops her and says, "Take my word for it, I'm smiling." Again, there's a lot of dialogue that I have to assume is from the book because it's very similar.
Hello, Gareth.
Hello, fashionably late as always. You only missed 1.5 movies. Nice to see you. Jareth, what's your experience with the Silence of the Lambs Hannibal Lecter franchise? How many of these have you seen? But the production of this, though, is at least talking earlier about it being kind of vague with when it's set. They're at least consistent with like using landlines and stuff for the phones. I don't think you ever see a cell phone in this movie. I don't think
No,
there's anything that's like that egregious. Like, oh my god, that's
no,
2000s.
they're very careful to keep it vaguely 90s, 2000s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it is weird how quickly they made this movie. I guess just because they had the same script to work with. but this comes out a year and a half after Hannibal. We don't
Well,
do
it
that
is
anymore.
crazy. We didn't even do that multiple times in this franchise.
Mhm.
Because the next movie isn't until 07.
Yep. Hey, look, John. He's wearing the Hannibal Lecter
Mask.
mask.
You know, I'll give it this. At least it makes sense that the hospital would just already have that
Yeah.
mask.
No, I'm not even complaining about it. It's just funny.
Yeah. No, it's more awkward in something like Hannibal Rising, where it's like, oh, he's got a form of the mask like 50 years before that would have happened.
That and that's not even a mask he wears by choice. It's something the hospital forces him to wear.
Because he eats people.
I do like this sequence a lot. I like it in Manhunter 2, but in Manhunter we're just focusing on Will Graham and the forensic side of this. I do like this sequence in this version where they're like, no, we have a time limit. Like, this is like an operation we're staging because we're checking Hannibal's cell, and then we got to get it back together without him knowing. So there's some phony stuff going on, like they have a guy pretending to be plumbing or whatever. So this sequence I do really like how they're trying to pull this trick
This
on Hannibal.
this does it better than Manhunter. Because we get that same bit in Manhunter, but it doesn't feel as rushed in that.
It
Like,
doesn't feel as urgent because we
yeah,
just
here
got
it's
to
like,
the
no, we're in
urgent
a
stuff.
hurry.
Jareth says he's only seen Silence of the Lambs, great movie, and a
Couple
couple
episodes of the
episodes of the
show.
show. Yeah, I saw it
Like
in
at the beginning
isolation.
of the show, or just random episodes? Because that's a very serialized, like. Is that the weird cable show? Like cable show because it was NBC, but it's structured like a streaming show where it's only like 13 episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
it's each
Yeah,
episode picks up.
that did come out in an era where we were experimenting more with that. Like that was becoming more of the norm at the time, and now we can't get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, here we have, and I think this is a character from the books, Ken Leung as Lloyd Bowman, who is in X-Men: The Last Stand, is the porcupine guy, and is in a bunch of stuff. Like that's one of those actors. I guess he's on Lost. That's probably the thing he's most
Yeah,
known for. But he's in a million things.
I'm like trying to rack my brain. I watched something with him in it just the other day, but it's like more recent, and he looks almost the exact same except he's gone gray.
Mm-hmm. He has a bit role in The Force Awakens. Uh, he's in Old, The Beach That Makes You Old. I guess he was in Joker too, but I forgot.
I haven't seen it.
He was in Miss. Did you watch Missing recently? Or no? I like
No,
Missing. Okay.
what did I
Um,
watch recently?
he was a
That,
voice in Velma, but that wouldn't make sense.
that's
And
the thing
last,
is, I don't even remember what it was.
yeah, last thing I saw him in was Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix version. He played Commander Zhao, and I actually liked him in that. He was a
It's
highlight of
not
the trip
bad
for me.
casting.
They really lean into like the opportunist take on that character. You know, he's very much a backstabber, climbing his way to the top. I liked him in that.
Do
I
they
like
do
his
they
book.
actually do like his temper is what undoes him?
Uh, no, I think they skipped that episode.
Of course they do.
But that bit I like a lot when the guy's pretending to be a janitor, and he's got the mop, and then Hannibal sees the rubber glove sticking out of his pocket.
Yeah,
Bits like that are really good. It's kind of unfortunate that it doesn't get to go anywhere. It's just we need Hannibal shit because we're marketing this as a Silence of the Lambs prequel. But it's still a cool sequence.
in the Last of Us season premiere was he?
No, they're Like there is an Asian guy in The Last of Us, but I think that's a different actor.
I can't
So
find
maybe
it.
you're just confusing. Yeah, maybe you're just confusing him with somebody else.
It'll drive me crazy, and I'll remember it in like an hour.
Yeah, I remember seeing him in The Force Awakens, where it was just like, oh, that guy. I don't know, it was weird. I don't know if you read this yet, but Jareth said that he watched the first couple episodes when they aired. I know my sister started it. I
No,
remember catching a
I,
glimpse of it.
I keep accidentally clicking out of OBS and it minimizes the chat. Oh, nice.
But,
The show's
but
great.
yeah, I remember my sister starting it when it came out. I don't remember if she finished it or not, but I need to finally watch it. Jareth, if you haven't seen more of these, if you'd like to see more of these movies, I'd say check out this and Manhunter, uh, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Because
No, watch Hannibal because it's nuts.
it's interesting.
I sent Noah a gif of Gary Oldman in that movie because he didn't know what he looked like. When I read the book and they detailed, oh, his like face was eaten. That's not how I pictured that.
Yeah, I think in the movie they changed it to Hannibal talked him into cutting his own face off, but they still do the pigs thing. It's weird.
Yeah. The idea is this the revenge, the cannibal is eaten by something else.
Mm.
I love we're gonna get here in a moment. The big scene where it's like he gave him your address, and he starts with "Don't freak out," as if he
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. Like, come on.
Don't leave. We took care of it. And then he leaves.
Like, what did you expect him to do?
Hang the phone up, Edward Norton. It is weird when you get to scenes like this, watching these movies back to back, where you're like, "Yep, it's the
I
same
know
movie."
that. Yeah, I've seen this.
I don't know. I do prefer the other version. It's a bit more suspenseful.
Yeah, I don't mind that this isn't suspenseful because the stakes have still increased, which is what
Yeah.
the scene's ultimately about. I'm like, oh, now it's personal.
Mm-hmm. His son is just a not such a non-character in this version. It's the movie keeps reminding you that he exists, and then in the climax, he'll
Well, what's
actually come
funny
out of
because
it.
when I was browsing through it, I forgot. In the book, it's not even his son; it's his stepson.
Oh, that's an interesting choice. So I wonder if the show goes into that because that seems like something they would.
Maybe because I know because the show has this weird thing where he does get married. Because I know I've seen images of him talking about his wife, but he also has this really weird kind of intimate relationship with Hannibal.
Mm-hmm.
That they really kind of
Oh
double
yeah,
down on the
no, I've heard
subtext.
that show really leans into the homoerotic subtext
Yeah,
with those two. Jared said he watched Immaculate last night. Great Easter film. I agree.
I agree. I saw you
I
liked
watched it
my
yesterday.
letterbox review. He liked it as much as I did.
Oh, cool. This is the scene where I'm like, okay, I get it. Silence of the Lambs happened. I could roll with the first mask, but now he's in the other face thing he wore in that movie, the one with his nose pressed down. This is one of those scenes that's clearly just added because we want more Anthony Hopkins.
But Robert, do you remember Silence of the Lambs?
I do. So this is the bit I was talking about earlier, where it's like, oh, and now he's teaching his wife how to shoot a gun. Like, that's fine. I just wish we spent more time on this stuff.
Yeah.
This is only here because of the ending. It's just, we should probably set that up. Let's show him teaching his wife how to shoot for 5 seconds. And it is interesting how these two movies are, like about the same length, but they're structured and paced so differently
So
that, like, in the other version, I think this guy's already dead by this point. The
yeah, I think
horse,
so.
it's like we're already
Because
past
we're
this.
just now getting to how they blackmail him into doing
Mhm.
what they want him to do.
And yeah, like, and again, I do think Stephen Lang sells just how scummy that character is in Manhunter, but Philip Seymour Hoffman's take,
He's just a
it's
different,
like,
better actor.
but he's just so douchey.
And there's something
Just
really
like,
funny about just Edward Norton delivering some of this dialogue.
mhm. It's really funny that in both versions, this elaborate scheme is to get the killer to go after Will.
Yeah, none
Whoops,
of them
he went
stop to
after.
think, oh,
Maybe he'll go after the guy who published it. Whoops. Oh no, mistakes were made.
no, 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 wait.
We got 10 days until the full moon, John. That's when it becomes a vampire movie.
Wait a minute. That shouldn't be vampires. That's werewolves, you fraud.
I was testing you to see if you're paying attention.
Yeah, I'm watching the movie that I watched earlier today. Why?
I love Ray Fiennes' "come at me, bro" energy.
Yeah. Like, what are you gonna do? Huh?
Okay, that's either a jump cut or a continuity error. In the last shot of him pulling in, he had his arm out the window, looking like a real asshole. And then when he cut to him coming in, both arms are in and the window's rolled up.
Well, it is
Too
Brett
better, Brett
Ratner,
Ratner.
so it's probably a continuity error.
I'm with you though. This version, and I don't know if this details in the book or not, but this is very disturbing. Being glued to
Yeah.
his wheelchair, where you're like, oh, you're fucked. Like, you're not getting out of this.
You gonna die,
Like,
motherfucker.
even if the killer lets you go, all your all that skin's gonna get ripped off.
This is very Saw before Saw.
Right? Do you want to play a game, Philip?
And that that one guy, X3 guy, is also in Saw.
He is. That's the other thing I knew him from, because he's in a million things. But yeah,
He's the one that gets his head blown
so.
off.
I work for the National Tatler.
I won't tattle on you.
Because it's a woman in the show, did they rename it Tit for Tatler?
Yes.
That woke show.
It is kind of funny because now that I'm more aware of it, because his name is like Freddie, so they're able to keep that. So it's just a woman named
Mhm,
Freddie, which is I guess works. You just don't see that a lot.
mhm. Yeah, it's generally a gender neutral name.
All on how you spell it.
I, I am curious to see her take on that character because I don't know if they make her more three dimensional or if they really play up her being an asshole.
I do vaguely remember, at least in season one, she's kind of a pain in the ass for Will, but
Mhm.
it's Will. Like some of Ralph Fiennes' dialogue delivery, I'm like, I can hear a bit of his Voldemort.
Yeah. Also, it's also him wearing that robe, right? Like the way he just carries his
Yeah.
hands, like his body language.
What if he just
It's
walked up
very
to Philip
Voldemort.
Seymour Hoffman and was like, I can touch you now, and put his hand in his forehead? What cracks me up about this scene, though, is when he sees the tattoo, he like starts freaking out. Like, dude,
Yeah,
it's a tattoo.
dude, you. Oh my God, dear Jesus, holy Jesus, goddamn, holy Jesus, jumping Christmas shit.
This movie would be better if he said that instead.
You go back and read the book, and that's how it is, word for word. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, but it's like, dude, it's a tattoo. Like, it's a cool tattoo.
Yeah, it's not very red though. Do you think it's just
No.
not finished yet?
Well, yeah, he's changing.
You want to know what I am? And like I said, I do like the scene a lot in Manhunter, but here we really draw it out. The do you see? Do you see? Like it's so good.
Yeah, I like that here because it's like, oh god, this is horrifying.
Do you see, John?
And Fiennes delivers this in a better way. It's hard to describe. It's just there's something unhinged.
Yeah. Well, Tom Noonan again, I also find creepy, but in just a much more calm,
Yeah.
subtle way.
Well, and I've noticed that's just like the Tom Noonan thing because like in RoboCop 2 as Kane, he never shouts or raises his voice.
Mhm.
He's very methodical and soft spoken. I like how it didn't even occur to the reporter, like, oh, what if he comes after me?
Right. I am the dragon. Oh, great. Now he's monologuing.
Flanagan to make this movie. Fuck it. Give me the Red Dragon philosophizing about life and death. And
The scene with Will Graham and his wife goes on for like 20 minutes.
yeah.
One thing you do get to see in the other version, though, is him actually reading the note. Here we cut away because we're gonna read it later.
Oh, yeah, true.
Oh God,
This made
and
me uncomfortable. like oh god, what are you showing me here?
Yeah, and Manhunter he puts in the teeth, goes in to bite him, and then we cut away. Here they show it.
Some folks have a
Also,
strange idea of entertainment.
it just that wheelchair
That's
on fire.
really funny. Like,
When it falls over,
I don't think there was a
he's so
serious way to
jagged.
shoot that scene. Just
Yeah, I think Manhunter had the right idea where you see it on screen for just 1 second. Here they linger on it. It's just really funny.
I like the little detail that he left in the screams for them
Yeah.
to hear.
This is the worst audio drama I've ever listened to. It is interesting how much this take on Jack Crawford is like, he's just a good guy. He's in charge. In the context of this being a Silence of the Lambs prequel, where in that movie they do not that he's a bad guy, but they have those subtle hints of like, yeah, he kind of wants to sleep with Clarice. That's why he's promoting her. There's that subtle
Because
seediness to him that they play.
I appreciate that because the protagonist is a male, so you see him through that lens. But in Silence, you're seeing him through the lens of a woman
Of a woman, yeah.
protagonist.
Also, we're talking about books that were written in a different order, and Thomas Harris may not have thought of that yet.
Yeah. And I do wonder because, like, I'm thinking of the show. I don't see the show's version of Jack Crawford doing that at all. And maybe part of that is because it's Lawrence Fishburne. Like, I don't know.
Like old Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
I don't really see the womanizing guy in there, but to each their own. He could do it.
Lawrence Fishburne is one of those weird actors because, like, you think he's it's a big deal when you see him in an older film, and then you realize, yeah, like, he's in a lot of stuff, but he's only in a few big things. He's basically a character actor.
Yeah, and he'll often be a side character, like in Mission Impossible 3. He gets tiny roles like that.
The way the Nightmare on Elm Street 3 box just talked it up, and like back in the day, I thought he was a main character. He's in that movie for like 3 scenes.
Yeah, that is one of the. That's Larry Fishburne.
That also confused me. I was like, what?
And then tying. Okay, so that's interesting. I haven't thought of that connection before. William Peterson plays Will Graham in Manhunter, and then Lawrence Fishburne plays Will Graham's boss in the Hannibal show, and in the CSI show, Lawrence Fishburne is William Peterson's successor.
Oh, wild.
Because when William Peterson leaves, Lawrence Fishburne comes in as the new protagonist, and he's in a couple seasons of that show.
Weird era, because like we also had that with Law and Order CI when Vincent D'Onofrio stepped down, and fucking Jeff Goldblum of all people.
Goldblum, right? Yeah, and a lot of people like you were done with CSI once Grissom was out. Like, okay, it's over. It's like the Lawrence Fishburne years. He was a very different character.
Part of me wants to go back and like actually watch that show because that is a show I definitely lost interest. But even at the time, I was like, That is a show that I catch random episodes when they're on TV.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. You're at the mercy of
Yeah.
whatever's on.
Real quick, Slasher Fred says The Silence of the Lambs can be seen as the final movie in the trilogy, in the movies in which were all inspired by the crimes of Ed Gein. Is,
Well,
is this a spiritual trilogy?
I assume he's talking about Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre because those are like the big ones. But there's no shortage of serial killer movies inspired by Ed Gein. That's more than a trilogy, my friend.
I
You
think
could
at this,
watch,
I think at this point they've even just made Ed Gein movies.
including a TV one where he's played by Kane Hodder. Did you know that?
Yes, actually, I did. He talks about that in his book, which I have read
Hmm.
because I'm a nerd. He took that because he wanted to start doing more real acting versus just being a guy
I
in a
get that,
mask.
like having dialogue, not being a stunt actor. It's just funny because if you know anything about what Ed Gein looks like, Kane Hodder's not the right
No.
fit for that scrawny, schlubby, pathetic middle-aged guy. It's like Kane Hodder. Oh, and meanwhile, in the fifth, oh, now it's done. There's a lot of Lecter scenes in this.
Yeah, and if you shot them better, I'd be fine with it. But a
Hmm.
lot of them don't seem to add anything.
But now we've kind of synced up to the other movie, where this is probably about when this scene happens in the other movie with the tiger.
Yeah, probably. Strange.
Um, and I like this scene. I prefer the Manhunter version. Did you notice the bit when she grabs the tiger's crotch?
No, I did notice that.
That was a choice. In the Manhunter one, it's like this very beautiful moment, and this one's kind of off. But it was directed by Brett Ratner, so he's got to put his personality somewhere in there. He's got to take some artistic license. And here, I can't tell if that's a real tiger or not, or if there's some stuff edited in post. Yeah, why? Why are we doing this?
Oh my god, no, stop it.
That's a weird choice, right?
Yeah. Well, what's weird is the look on her face. Like,
Yeah,
is that her way of flirting with him? Is she just as unhinged as he is, and that's the twist?
that would be amazing.
Well, and I do have a question for when we get to the end later, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and this is probably from the book because in both versions she's listening to its heartbeat. I prefer the other one when she like hugs it.
Yeah, I'm
It's a very
indifferent.
well directed sequence. There's some decent setup here for how she's gonna escape later. And I really like this dynamic, how it's very sweet and sincere, but also like he's clearly taking advantage of her. Where once he sees that she's blind, it's like, oh, well, this is perfect for me. I don't have to. I can take
Which
her
is,
to my weird home.
which is even funnier in the context of this movie because he's Ralph Fiennes with a cut.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you do fine. Yeah, and then this scene, she's like, everyone says that you have like a remarkable body, and you're like, I mean, he's fit. I don't. They're talking like he's more of the bodybuilder than he is in the book. And then in the show, I think Dollarhide is played by the guy who played Thorin in the Hobbit movies.
I thought you said Thor for a second, and I was like, Chris
Yes, Chris
Hemsworth?
Hemsworth. So that's interesting casting.
Richard Armitage.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, that is who it is. Huh. Yeah, I have no idea what they're, but I do. I pulled it up. That season also brings back the Mason Verger, who will end up being the Hannibal villain, and his sister Margot Verger, who is Gibbs from Freddy vs. Jason, everyone's favorite character. No, apparently that actress is just like a horror actress. Like she's got quite the filmography. I don't know if you've seen Ginger Snaps, but it's really good.
That's is that like one of 3 werewolf movies that people really
Yes.
like?
And it got a
That seems like
trilogy,
my watch
including
list.
the mandatory prequel for the third movie, which is those two actresses, but playing completely different people.
Oh God, of course they did that.
And it's called Ginger Snaps Back: The Beginning.
Is that a remake that's been in development hell for forever? That's just not materialized
I
yet.
don't know. Like that's a popular movie, but it's not like it was a hit. It
Well, John,
made
that hasn't
less than
stopped Hollywood before.
true.
They're still threatening to make a Big Trouble in Little China remake.
Oh God, stop it!
Which famous stop trying to remake popular cult movies that lost money in the first place. You're only gonna
Oh,
piss off people.
it's even better. There's a TV show remake in the works.
Oh, of course there is.
I don't know how that'll work, but you know what? It's worked before.
That's true. Like I said, the relationship between these two characters is definitely the highlight of this version for me. We're just really taking our time with it. It's been more organic. But then shots like this are shot exactly the same way as the Michael Mann one is. And again, it's just such a creepy setup where it's these home movies of the next family he's targeting, and she doesn't know that because she's blind. Yeah, it's such an awkward date. Jareth said, for a second there, I thought you said horror actress. He did, and he meant it.
Put words in my mouth. Um,
No, I stumble over the word horror a lot
yeah,
too. I don't like
it's.
saying it.
I hate saying it because every time it sounds like I'm saying something else.
Horror.
Horror. She's also in See No Evil too, which was decent.
Oh,
I like the first one better. I am the one fan of See No Evil.
which one's See No Evil?
That is a mid 2000s slasher movie from when the WWE decided to start making films.
Okay. It's that one, okay.
It has one of the best kills of those mid 2000s slashers. She's hiding from the killer, and her phone goes off, so he shoves it down her throat. It's awesome.
Yeah, and like you said, this the sex scene between these two is mostly off screen in this version and plays very differently. Where in this one, he's clearly getting off looking at this other woman. You know, that's what has his attention. He's just gets the physical bonus this time. In Manhunter, it's more of a genuine like union between those two. Again, that's a scene that just plays very differently. Also in Manhunter, in their morning after, he just sees her. He just goes outside. She's out there. it's a very nice sunrise moment. Here, we hold on him a lot more, and you get this freak out scene where he's like, "Oh God, where is she? What did she find?" This is gonna be really important later, but this is just Ray Fiennes acting nuts. And what's funny, the sex scene is off screen, but you do get to see Ray Fiennes naked.
Yep. That was your favorite scene, don't lie.
He's rocking that tattoo. Also, I think when they originally made this movie, I don't know if you read this, because I think in the book there is, like you said, like that red dragon voice is like in his head, talking to him
Yeah.
constantly. Originally, I think they got Frank Langella to actually record those lines for it, and they ended up cutting that in post because they were like, "Yeah, it's kind of creepier if you don't hear what he's hearing."
That's probably a good idea. I don't recognize that name just off the top of my head.
That's Skeletor in the
Oh.
Dolph Lundgren
Ew.
movie. But he's in other things. He's a great actor. Also,
Okay.
Skeletor is great in that movie.
I mean,
He's
he's.
Dracula in
I'm
the
not saying
'80s
he's.
Dracula movie.
I'm not saying he's bad, but I'm just like hearing what I know of that voice, trying to picture that as the
Ray
Red Dragon.
Fiennes, be the Red Dragon.
Like I don't see it.
But I think it's Ray Fiennes' performance that makes the scene work. He's just so
Yes.
unhinged. No, she's nice. She's okay. You know, the '80s movie was very '80s, had a very '80s soundtrack. I do wish this movie had a very 2000s soundtrack. Like, I just want some Nickelback or some
I need
Creed
some
playing.
Creed right here.
Yeah, like right when Ray finds is freaking out. I
Hey
want that to
Creed.
be the music. I want that to be the music that Dollarhide's listening to. It understands me, man. I have to go away.
Believe now. Where? Anywhere that you're not, bitch.
Go, bitch. It's like, what did I do? Like so, this relationship's very tragic. This is maybe the most unnecessary Hannibal bit. We're just cutting back because it's like, remember, he's in the movie. And like this sequence is fine here, but I do prefer the Manhunter one that really draws it out with Will piecing this together, you know, the music ramping up. Here we're cross cutting with some other scenes going on. Hey, did you remember that Hannibal likes high society meals? This is just like, okay, sure.
Why not?
Boo. But that's a different door. So my headcanon is that that's the actual red dragon painting, and that Ray Fiennes is gonna improvise this bit where he eats it and just
Also made me
destroy this.
uncomfortable.
No, Rafe, stop! It's this priceless. It's for the art. It's for the performance. It's got to be real.
Yeah, no, I hope that's what I'm. But like eating paper of any kind is just ugh.
Ugh. Yeah.
Especially in that there's ink and
Oh god. And it's old. Like it's really old. I prefer freshly
I.
printed
What I
paper.
like about this though thematically is it's kind of like the eating the heart of your enemy. He's eating the dragon. He is becoming the dragon. That's what I
Or
like
like
about
the scene,
this villain.
or
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
or like when the coroner eats Jason's heart and
Yeah,
Jason
he's
goes wild.
becoming Jason.
He's become Jason, literally.
That's what I like about this villain over Buffalo Bill is the concept is so out there and high fantasy,
Hmm.
fantastical.
Yeah, just so delusional. Um, yeah,
Buffalo
that's
Bill
just
is
the
great, but he's much simpler. Yes.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, and also I like that the movie Buffalo Bill really leans into like, oh no, this is a guy who's always been dissatisfied with what he is, and he's just always trying things. Like
yeah,
there's the hints in like his apart or in his house where it's like, oh, he had his like white supremacist Nazi phase. Like he's tried all kinds of things over the years
yeah.
because he's just fucking
That's
nuts and an
the
asshole.
prequel we'll make instead of. That's what they should have made instead of the Clarice show. There's the different lives of Buffalo Bill. There's just like an entire season of him being a Nazi.
Yeah, I'd make it a sitcom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Ted Levine really makes that character terrifying. Like that movie doesn't want you to sympathize with Buffalo Bill,
Not at
really. He's
all.
this fucking monster. I like that the Tooth Fairy's a bit more three-dimensional, and you're like both versions, but especially this one communicate that like yeah, this guy is just compelled. He doesn't want to be doing what he's doing. He's just that disturbed and broken. And like so I really like the Manhunter version of the scene where it's just a misunderstanding. Uh where he kills this guy for what he perceives as hitting on his lady friend. Here it's he kills him just because he's an asshole.
We love to see it, folks.
Jareth said he totally forgot about the show. He saw most of it. Oh, which show are you talking about?
You liked
Are you talking about the Clarice show?
the Clarice show better than Foster? That's a
That's a hot take if I've ever
that's
heard
like
one.
beyond hot take. That's like a super
uh,
spicy take.
yeah, I love Jodie Foster in that movie, but I also haven't watched that show. Nor do I
Is
plan to.
Clarice in that show even Southern?
I don't know.
The Clarice from the show is the one that hears the ram screaming.
And like I said, Julianne Moore is a step down. I do think that was a good choice for that role. If you can't get
I just have to
Foster,
rewatch it. But I don't have
yeah,
anything against Julianne Moore. I feel like
yeah.
people have decided she's a bad actress,
I've
but
always liked her. She's
I
in the
like
Lost
her.
World.
Yeah, I think she's pretty good in Carrie.
I've heard she's the best part of that movie. Okay, I need to finally watch it.
I really like Chloe Moretz in that role, but
Yeah, I've heard she's just like she's too Hollywood looking for that
yeah,
role.
I have that with Spacek too. We
With
haven't
Spacek,
actually
I don't like. She looks weird
we haven't.
in a good way.
Oh well, okay, fucking.
You know, but I buy her as an outcast.
But we haven't really cast like
The
Carrie,
book Carrie, yeah,
so it's like that's fine. The closest we get is the TV movie, and that movie's not great.
yeah, and I've heard she's the best part of it.
She is, but she's also another one where it's like, you're a little too like you're doing a really good job playing the weirdo, but like Book Carrie is described as fat and weird, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just kind of Hollywood's idea of weird. If Flanagan casts what's her name from Hereditary, the one that gets their head knocked off, that'll be perfect casting.
Oh, spoiler alert! I still haven't seen Hereditary, but I'm familiar with
Oh,
the actress. That
the one person in the world that hasn't seen Hereditary. Do you know about that scene though, right?
No, I think I avoided
Whoa!
it.
Just because that's the thing everyone talks about.
It's like, oh fuck, Ray Fiennes has gone off the deep end, Sean.
He's become the dragon.
Reba. And though the conflict between these two is set up really well, where earlier at his job he just saw Will Graham there, so what he assumes is that she found something weird in his place or caught on to him and then called the police. That's what he thinks is going on. We of course know that this is entirely a misunderstanding, that Will Graham's onto him for other reasons. But he feels betrayed by her. You know, he thinks that she's turned on him, even though we know she didn't. So this stuff's set up really well. Jareth said he's just not a fan of Jodie Foster in general, and that he didn't think the show was good, but he liked that actress. I mean, fair enough. I'm not like a huge Jodie Foster fan. I love her in that movie. I also haven't seen her in much else outside of it.
I don't really care about her. Like she's just giving a good performance. I find that weird. This is kind of a segue because I have friends that won't watch certain movies because somebody's in it. Like I have a friend that is deeply uncomfortable with Sigourney Weaver, and like I cannot get her to watch
Oh,
Alien
weird.
because of it.
Weird.
And I have another friend that hates Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm just like,
Oh, just
what?
watch Daredevil.
Yeah,
Oh, Jareth said he doesn't like Hereditary.
it is a little overrated. It's I
It
don't
is.
hate it. I don't think it's the masterpiece that some people think it is.
It's definitely the most liked of that director's work because everything he's made after has been a lot more divisive.
Midsummer might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. And then I didn't bother with his 3 hour vanity project with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, but this sequence is really good. Ray Fiennes really sells this, like just the torture and the conflict of this character. Like, he really doesn't want to do this. But he also thinks in his twisted mind, well, if I kill you, then that's good, because then the red dragon won't get you. And you're like, no, man, that's not how this works. And like I said, this poor woman, she's never going to date again, right?
Nope. Not got a lot of therapy. Okay, so I have a question.
I was hoping you'd ask this.
So he shoots, blood hits her face. She then later tells Will Graham, I felt him,
Here.
and yeah. What did he shoot? Because it could have been himself.
Well, the body is the guy he just killed. He brought the body here, but so he clearly shot it in the face, but so was the body on the floor and he shot it in the face and the blood went up into her face? I don't know.
Okay, well, because I didn't notice the other body or realize that was what that was happening. So it's like, oh, I know this isn't over yet. But then he just shows up front. I was like, did she lie to the cops? Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that is from the book. He brought the other body here, so for a while they think, oh, that's his body because he was burned up in the fire. I assume. I haven't read the book. But yeah, in terms of the blood splatter, yeah, logistically, I'm not sure how that happened. And also, whoa, we got a big explosion, dude. So I get that he like dumped gasoline everywhere, but that was a big explosion.
I think you mean gasoline. That's fine. It's got to be cinematic, rather.
That's true. I do like this scene a lot. This is a very intimate moment with Will and this poor woman trying to, you know, get her through this because this is a shitty situation to be in.
Man, I'm noticing it more on my big TV. The cinematography in this movie is just ass.
It's that very 2000s hyper overly color corrected. Like
Yeah.
if you're looking at the blues and stuff.
I would love to
Really
see if like
saturated.
Arrow or Screen Factory can kind of recolor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
because I don't think any of these movies have had really proper recent restorations besides Silence of the Lambs. Because that one has a 4K now and a Criterion release.
funnily enough,
Hannibal
the
Rising has a
Criterion.
really nice steelbook.
Funnily enough, Criterion I think is the inferior version to buy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was just Blu-ray. I don't think they put out a 4K.
No, or no, sorry, I don't think it was Criterion because there's two 4Ks. Arrow and another company has fucked up the color temperature in a couple scenes,
Oh,
and
is that
then
the?
Arrow fixed it.
Oh,
So
that's
the
what it
Arrow
is.
version is the one you want to buy, but you have to
It's probably a
import
lot
it
harder
from
to get.
England.
That sucks. Okay, well now I know to avoid the Silence of the Lambs 4K because that's like a pretty. I don't know. It's like 25, $30. Like it's pretty easy to get, but now I know to avoid it.
Kino Lorber, that's who did it. Yeah, they fucked up some of the color temperature at the beginning. Red Dragon does have a 4K. It is currently $20.
Oh,
Oh, Hannibal also has a 4K.
hi, son. I remember you, son. Yeah, see, they don't do that grocery store scene at all when he talks to him.
Crazy. I think the Hannibal 4K restoration is also really good.
Oh, cool. It's a good looking movie. Where are my s'mores, son? Also, hi, wife. I do like this bit a lot when he finds out that Dollarhide's here because the mirror's smashed. That's a
Mhm.
really good choice.
Yeah.
And if you're watching the other version, that song would still be playing, and we'd be watching characters move around in slow motion.
That is what this scene is missing, to be fair.
We can rescore it.
I really need some Inagata Devita right now.
Oh my god.
But I checked real quick the review on one of the websites I use. Both Red Dragon and Hannibal have high score, at least for video quality. I might have to buy those.
Yeah, this is the scene you were talking about earlier. That's kind of funny, but it's great the way he gets in Dollarhide's head, talking like his grandmother.
Yeah, it is just kind of funny though because it's Ed Norton.
It's it's like the Friday the 13th scene when Ginny puts on the sweater and is pretending to be Jason's mom.
And
But here,
that kid doesn't know what he's doing.
oh, that kid's just traumatized forever. Um, but the look on Ray Fiennes' face is less like this is working and more like, "The fuck are you doing, man? You're a dick." It's like, "Oh, shut up, Josh, run," or whatever your
The
name is.
the act the twist at the Jared said yeah, you know. The twist is he actually wasn't talking to Dollarhide. That's just how he feels about his son.
That's the post-credit scene. It's we get more insight on his relationship, and we find out, oh no, Will's like a horrible father.
Will has become the Red Dragon. Yeah, I've
Right.
never bought anything from Kino, but their track record doesn't seem to be great. Like I've
No,
heard a
yeah,
few releases that they fuck up.
they put out a Blu-ray of the original Nosferatu, and they fucked up the frame rate. Like it's still watchable, but I know there is a foreign version that's supposed to be a lot better that you have to import.
Tell you about my first viewing of that.
No, I don't think so.
So we had to review it. I think it was me and Josh, and I just like found a copy on YouTube, but
Oh
the
yeah,
music
it's
was like
easy to find.
blown to shit, and I got a headache like halfway through. I was like,
Oh.
this is the worst thing I've ever had to sit through. So like my
Yeah, well,
review in that video is like super negative because I was just like, I just want this to end. Like my head hurts.
done. It was a silent movie. There's lots of different tracks on different versions of that movie.
And then I watched it later after the review. It's like, oh, when you watch the right version, like this is all right.
It's a lot better. So, okay, so I haven't read the book. You can correct me on this later. I'm guessing that in the book, Will shoots and kills Dollarhide, but in the movie, they probably changed it to, well, we want to give his wife something to do so she can have the
Yeah,
final shot. That's my
maybe.
guess. That feels
If
like
I
a
ever
good
get
guess.
around to reading those books, I will let you know.
But also, the way she plays that scene is weird like I get that she just killed a guy, but then she like screams like I killed a man. Like, it's just kind of awkward.
Yeah. I could see it still being the wife because obviously Harris's idea was like he's been ruined by this experience.
Mhm. Do you dream much, Will?
Do you dream of the red dragons?
That's a motif we're doing because we're trying to make it very close to the lambs thing, right? Like, do you still hear the lambs cries? Like, we're going for the same thing.
You know,
Yeah, I like this bit of him writing this letter to Will and Will on a boat, but I prefer the '80s power ballad. I want to hear the heartbeat song get in on
at
that
least
three
this
string.
will, he gets a happily ever after. He's not a miserable carved up drunk in Florida.
And now we're at your favorite scene.
Ah, Jesus.
There's a woman who wants to see you.
That
The
is just,
end.
you know what that reminds me of? The first Omen, where they're like, his
Yes.
name is Damien.
Dude, I think this one is better than that. If I had to pick one, I
If
think
I
the
had to
first
pick
Omen
one, it's
is worse.
probably this. Because, I mean, it's mostly harmless, to be fair. They don't
Yeah,
say the name. It could be anyone. But if you've seen that movie, you know what it is. That one's like, remember Damien?
Damien. Also, granted, I'd have to rewatch Silence of the Lambs to check. I'm not sure if the continuity even matches on that. Like, I don't think in that movie, like Chilton goes to Hannibal and has that little exchange. Like, I don't think that happens.
If it does, we wouldn't have seen it because we don't visit the prison until she does.
Right.
So that was probably like,
But
Robert,
also, like, was Chilton expecting her? I don't
watch
remember.
these back to back. Let me know how it is.
I'm going
Robert
to
is
rewatch all the Hannibal movies in chronological order. And I'll
Please
tell you how
do.
it goes.
So it'd be Hannibal Rising, then Manhunter, then Red Dragon, then Silence, then Hannibal, and then the Hannibal TV show somewhere.
Yes.
Watch the show. Oh no! Here's what you do: you watch the seasons of the show where they
Oh,
take
no.
place chronologically. So then Hannibal Rising, then Hannibal season 1 and 2, then Red Dragon, Hannibal season 3, Manhunter, Silence of the Lambs, and then Hannibal.
Perfect.
Uh,
I'll get back to you guys on that.
yeah.
We
The
did
way
it,
you
John.
rate, the way you watch movies, you'll be done by the time you're dead.
Yeah. John, that
Thanks.
takes a lot longer when we're doing two 2-hour movies.
Yeah, it does.